Hello, pipe smokers worldwide. We are back for another octagonal roundtable discussion with esteemed head blender of Cornell and Diehl, Mr. Jeremy Reeves.
Thanks as always for being here.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
We're super excited to discuss a brand new product, the latest and some would say greatest addition to the small batch line. Always super stoked about these new blends. I think to toot your horn, Jeremy, you and the team at Cornell and Diehl have been crushing these new additions. Firebird, Fires on the Levee, Steamworks might as well be Steve's favorite blend ever.
It is. Not mine as well. It is. It's my favorite blend.
And yeah, we're excited to smoke and talk about this new addition, Midnight Orchard.
Yeah. This is really the first time in the small batch line that we've gone sort of full bore on just embracing the aromatic style of blend. That is not to say that this is a big goopy, it's
Not
not
at all.
like we're all smoking it. I think that to me, it reminds me of so we just recently put a kumquat tree into our front yard. Man, standing in front of that tree and just the smell of the blossoms on it is incredible. And there's kind of a citrus floral note here that I think is reminiscent of that. We got some berry notes and some vanilla notes, but these are really accentuating what the tobaccos in the mix are doing. And first time we're using this particular component, blackened, Canadian bright. So just taking all that high sugar content and caramelized it. It's so interesting how it smells like just the leaf, nothing on it. It smells like citrus and floral. And so that was kind of the kickoff for what could we do with this to accentuate those notes but not cover it up and beef it up.
Yeah, we've a couple of these tins have been floating around the office for the past few weeks, and we've all been smoking through it and just same thing as you right now, just kind of getting some whiffs of it. I think we've all just taken that little whiff and said, Sunny Delight. But it's not like this weird artificial Sunny Delight. It is just like you said, it's tobacco forward. It's not this super artificial goopy smell. You're getting the Virginias, I would assume, is what's coming through there. But definitely that hint of a Sunny Delight.
Yeah. The first thing that I thought as I lit this up, because you mentioned it's not that goopy mess of an aromatic. First thing I thought was that this is definitely more aromatic than the blends that I typically smoke, but it's still very approachable for me. This isn't outside of my wheelhouse. It's not like an overloaded goopy mess, like you say. This is the kind of thing where if you are an aromatic smoker, it's got a lot of the Sunny D flavor. It's got those good notes that you're really gonna like. If you're not an aromatic smoker, this is still definitely something that's very approachable for you. That's my take on it, is that I could still smoke this thing all day, which I cannot say about most aromatics.
Yeah, it's very. So honestly, out of the 10, I think you nailed it with the kumquat comparison of a floral citrus.
We should just say kumquat as much as we can.
Sorry, copywriters.
There is this super pronounced floral citrus, but I expected the blend to be much more on the brighter, zingier side, and for me, it is much richer than I assumed it would be. And it could be in part due to that the new blackened bright Virginia.
Also, you've got some very nice crop year 24 St. James Parish Perique that's kind of bringing in some depth.
I think that's where the rich is maybe coming from.
And then some really beautiful Empire Virginias from India 2010. So, and also the first time we used that particular component as a Virginia in a blend.
So we got a couple first time things going on here.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind the blackened bright Virginias? How did that come about?
So we have been working on perfecting and getting ramped up black Cavendish production in-house. So we already were doing our own red Virginia Cavendish, but we're actually using sort of a different machine now, basically a steam chamber that we can control temperature and draw a lot of moisture out of the steam. And so we've just sort of been like steaming everything and seeing what we can do.
Like you got a new toy to play with, and you're just like, let's feed everything into this.
That's right.
And see what comes out well.
It's been sort of a game changer in a lot of our production, because you don't have to just blacken things in there. You can really quickly heat up and soften tobacco, so it's easier to work with more quickly. It's easier to get clean and ready to blend with more easily. And so, yeah, kind of first from that standpoint, it was just like, what? This smells amazing.
Yeah.
What if we took it further? So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll be expecting like the blackened Latakia, blackened Burleys, blackened deer tongue.
Blackened deer tongue.
Yeah, we've got the blackened series coming up.
So on like the blackening of the bright Virginias, what does that bring to a blend? What does it do taste wise to those Virginias?
So it really softens the leaf quite a bit, like in terms of its flavor intensity.
Okay.
But it caramelizes the sugars that give us sort of the flavor profile that we associate with high sugar Virginia, hay and citrus and like bright zesty sort of lemony notes.
Yeah.
It just darkens those.
Okay.
And it's really interesting how these citrus notes become a bit more floral. The sugar content is still present, but not to the degree previous. It softens that down and just kind of makes the leaf a little bit more savory,
Okay.
while still remaining sweet.
So I've got a question. As far as aromatics go, a lot of people will realize that small batch has not contained an aromatic blend up until Midnight Orchard. A lot of people think about aromatics. They think about fall. They think about autumn evening. They think about a lot of the winter blends that C&D has offered around Christmas time. Why was Midnight Orchard the perfect opportunity to come out with a spring, summerish type of aromatic?
Speaking for myself, and I know I'm sort of a weird one in the South Carolina area, but like I am not a fan of the spring and summer during the day. It is just oppressive.
You don't like changing your shirt every 2 hours?
Oppressive is great.
But at night, so we have like kind of a patch of trees, a little bit of essentially forest right behind the house, and then there's swamps just across the road. And when the sun goes down, there's just this moment where like the choir frogs start, and like you can hear like the crickets kind of going like, okay, it's time to make some noise, see if we can meet some other crickets. Like it's just kind of like a different, during the day I feel like everything is just like
Yeah.
Of course our garden's doing great, which I love, but man, it's brutal. And then at night it's like things come alive in a way that is really sort of invigorating, and it's finally not so punishingly hot out that I can be out there and enjoy it. And that's kind of where some of this idea came from, is just like the forest at night in South Carolina.
So basically what Jeremy just said is summer days wasting away, but those summer nights.
Yeah, it's Wella.
I don't know the reference.
You'll get it sometime.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Tell me more, yeah. That's all I know, unfortunately.
I probably know more of it.
Yeah. I know enough to know that "tell me more" is one of the next lines, but that's as far as I can go.
This blend is really smoking like greased lightning.
So speaking of which, and since you're looking at the artwork,
the art's
over here,
incredible.
so Andy, the way he described this to me was that like he wanted the name, the artwork, the blend to basically capture the feeling of the scene in The Hobbit where in the book where they're in the woods and they go off the path and like the elves are having the bonfires in the distance and they stumble into the clearing and then the bonfires get extinguished. Like it's this like mystical, magical moment where there's just these like, this beautiful thing that you're like looking on from a clearing and then it just kind of like disappears. And I think like that is very well captured in the artwork here.
Yeah, Anya's painting is beautiful.
Yeah, very, very well done. I'm not poetic enough to say if that's what I'm getting from the smoking experience.
You can really taste the elves.
Only Shane would taste that.
He's like, I'm really tasting some dwarves in the woods. As that kind of quintessential flavor.
As kind of silly as it sounds, we in the office heard the name prior to seeing the artwork, and I think it just perfectly embodies the smoking experience. There is something slightly ethereal about it. Ethereal as a tasting note, I'm a big fan of. There is something slightly ethereal, but
Something mystical about it.
Yeah, my southern roots say that this is something perfect on a summer night in the South. I imagine myself smoking this in a corn cob by a body of water.
Yeah, I don't necessarily always associate aromatics with this time of year. I'm always just gravitating more towards those brighter Virginia blends. But I think the aromatic part of this is really, like we talked about earlier, just sort of lurking there in the background, but it comes through and just gives you something a little bit extra than you would get from just a typical Virginia blend. A lot of ways I think of it as I do with Sun Bear. Sun Bear, arguably probably the most popular of the small batch series at this point. Sun Bear is really interesting because to me it's the Virginia forward blend, but it has just that little bit extra, which is the honey in that case. But I would equate this to something like a lot of people experience Sun Bear.
And it's also something that I think is like well suited to the time of year. Like smoking it is not heavy.
Yes.
There's richness here, but it's not like a powerhouse tobacco by any means.
Right.
It's really well suited to having to be outside in South Carolina during the day.
Having no choice.
The Retro Hill, there's something so delicious about the Retro Hill. It's, for lack of a better term, umami. And I definitely think the Perique comes across in that, but you get that subtle floral fruit flavor or floral citrus flavor, but also the sweetness from Virginia's. I find myself using the term often, but balanced. It comes across so rich, but nuanced. It's pretty amazing, man. And I think for the time of year, it is perfectly encompasses, the late spring summer transition we're moving into right now.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that we gave you that impression.
So something, Jeremy, you and I spoke about last week, and we were just talking about cellaring tobaccos, and we were talking about how most people just think of your Virginias or what you're cellaring. They don't really associate aromatics as much with cellaring, but you were talking to me a little bit about just the sugar content in this blend and how you thought it would age. This is a small batch, so not one that somebody's going to be able to get all year round. But could you just speak to maybe how you would smoke this now versus how you think it's going to cellar and age over time?
It is common knowledge that aromatics supposedly do not age, but it really has to do with whether or not the leaf has just basically been shellacked by added flavorings such that it just can't oxidize. That's certainly not what we've done here. The flavorings that we've added are natural, and the real sugar in the blend is coming from the tobaccos used. So I think that over time you'll see some of the brighter floral notes continue to deepen. I think that sweetness is going to just continue to darken. But I think that it is delicious now, and it's just going to become more fragrant and richer as time goes on.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what like a year or two does to the blackened Virginias. That's going to be, I think, kind of a unique experience.
even getting deeper into the bowl now, those kind of zingier sugar notes become much more rich and caramelized. Like a brown sugar or even kind of a burnt caramely sugar sweetness to it. I like this a lot.
This has changed a lot as the bowl. I know when we first lit up, we were all thinking it was a much later blend, but I think that's changed a lot.
It's got some body to it, and I'm not really thinking Sunny D anymore. This has changed pretty dramatically as this has gone on in some very good ways.
I am a huge fan of the Negroni cocktail, and there's some elements here as well where like the Negroni is sweet, and at first it seems like it's just going to be sweet, and then that bitterness and the Campari kicks in, and it's like, oh, this has like a switchblade hidden in its jacket.
Keeps the razor under its tongue.
And there's some elements here that remind me of sort of those like leaning sweet, but still savory, and it comes more savory as the smoke progresses.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of describing what's going on here.
Very complex aromatic blend, which is I think what everybody out there is looking for when you look into the small batch lineup. You're looking for a different experience than you can get with Cornell and Diehl's 500 other blends. So it's a way to experience something that you're not going to get in the rest of the portfolio.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the what I'm assuming is the blackened leaf. Also, there's a roasty quality to it. It's one of those blends, and granted, I smoked through some samples as you were going through the blending process, but just a bowl or so. So I think it's one of those blends, the more you smoke it, the more things you'll be able to pull out of it.
We recently made a stop at a certain famous gas station in Florence.
Buc-ee's.
They're not paying us for this video, so I wasn't going to name names. Plus, some people missed out on the experience for whatever reason. Chris. So I was there. I had some like the smoked turkey jerky, and this is like, as this is going on, it's giving me kind of that flavor.
Oh,
the smoked like roasted meat with that umami. And it was like, kind of peppery, and it's really giving me some of those same notes here as this bowl progresses, which is a pretty far cry from how it started.
Yeah.
I mean, we maybe stop at Buc-ee's.
We haven't got the smell-o-vision kicked into the marketing department yet either, but just room note-wise, I think is very pleasant as well. So I think a lot of people smoking aromatics are looking for something in mixed company. If you're going to be out on a patio, something like that this summer, I think this would be a great thing to have in mixed company. I think it's got everything somebody wants as an aromatic smoker. It also has something people want if they're strictly a Virginia smoker. I think if you're looking to maybe cross over into something aromatic for this spring and summer, Midnight Orchard would be a great place to go.
Fit.
It's a true crossover blend, I think, in the way that it could please the Virginia and the aromatic smokers. And even, I think there's enough richness here that primarily English smokers could really enjoy.
I think that
experience it's got.
For sure.
Yeah, kind of has, it would scratch a similar itch to like Dark Fired Kentucky, even without really tasting anything like that.
It's got me super excited about the future of Cornell and Diehl and just playing with new tobaccos. Like you said, there's some Virginias in here that you guys have never used. And with this newly processed Bright Virginia leaf, I'm super excited to see what else you and the team can come up with. And I really appreciate you constantly pushing the boundaries of pipe tobacco and doing new things.
Taking some chances. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks, y'all.
I like it.
So only 10,000 tins? Midnight Orchard?
Yeah. So
about to be on site. But check it out. Midnight Orchard, great first small batch aromatic. Be sure to let us know when you get your tins. Let us know in the comments what you think, and like and subscribe to Smoking Pipes for more content.
And thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you, guys.